Jeremy, Lyft's making a lot of big moves. You went from selling level 5 to coming roaring back with a partnership strategy. You clearly have a seat at the table for autonomy. How is Lyft currently thinking about autonomy?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, we're very excited about autonomy, about the future. I think you guys talked in your podcast a couple of weeks back about David Risher's memo, but I mean, we're thinking about it in that way, right? I think you said it. We started with L5 to build the technology on our own. I think we smartly decided that's not what we do best. What we do best is build the marketplace. What we do best is connect the rider customer with the vehicle and take them where they want to go. And so we focus really on the partnership side. How do we make sure we are the best partners out there, that anybody who owns an AV, who are developing AV, will look at Lyft as a good, honest, helpful partner that will maximize their commercialization of their vehicles.
Do you feel the sale of level 5 to Open Planet in 2021 allowed Lyft to double down and focus on your core strength of being a platform, processing transaction, matching riders with drivers, and in the future, robotaxis?
I think you saw that in a lot of parts of the business where we just focused, after coming out of COVID and thinking about our long term, we needed to be focused on the basics, right? We needed to figure out how do we do what we do best? How do we make sure we're providing great service, right? That the rider gets picked up reliably, that's a quick ETA, they get where they want to go, that the driver's compensated, their earnings are fair, that we're building the right platform for them so that drivers can come on and earn anytime, any way they want, and really have focused on the basics of that, getting that right. And then from that, we can build things like autonomous on top of it. And so we're in a strong place today, I think, because we really focused the business.
When you look at your traditional business with riders and drivers, how are you able to keep the ETAs across the US so low versus the aggregate?
It's one of the things we're most proud about. David was saying in our last earnings call, we've had lower ETAs on average across the board than our biggest competitor in the US over the last couple of quarters. And that's not easy, right? It takes a lot of people working very hard on the engineering side, a ton of people on the product side, on the data science side, making sure that we were creating the best marketplace possible. So it starts with a couple of things. I mean, one, this is my job, is the supply side, right? How do we make sure that we have enough drivers and that we have them at the right times in the right places so that when you come on as a rider and you open the app, boom, you're going to get, no matter what mode you want, no matter how far you're going to the airport, going somewhere else, that you're going to get that match quickly. So it's the match time we got to get closer. And then the ETA, how do we get it closer? How do we make sure it's accurate? So when we tell you it's going to be 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes, not 7. So that then people will come back because they know it's a product they can rely on.
When you look at destinations, I use probably my most common destination is the airport. Is that the most common destination across the aggregate of your data?
That's a huge part of our ride mix is the airport, pick up, drop off at the airport. Obviously, lots of other venues and events will spike, right? When there's a big event down in Florida, we'll get, huge, spikes, and we know what those are usually. And then, you get commute, you get a bunch of other places, but the airport is so critical. It's critical. You think about it, right? One of the things we're trying to do is figure out how, for the consumer, do we create a product and an experience then better than what the alternative would be? And obviously, driving to the airport, paying for parking, getting on a shuttle, getting to the airport. If we can make that experience so much better, it makes it where ride share in general to the airport can be a huge, huge market.
The number one greatest thing of taking Lyft to the airport is curbside drop off. And in some cases, some airports, you can still do this curbside pickup.
Yes.
And the airports that allow curbside pickup, bravo, Palm Beach International Airport does it.
I know, bravo to you. More of that for sure. I mean, for real, right? Like we're trying to make this, convenience matters, right? People, we want to value their time. We want to create the right environment where people can, get off the airplane, walk right out, get in the car, get home so they can go on with their lives.
I consulted for years for one of the large big three carriers. And one of the projects that we worked on was connecting rideshare to the app of the airline so that it would automatically get you a car. This was all we prototyped. This would get you a car when you walk out of the gate. They knew how long it took to get to the airport, to get to the curb. And then you say you go to spot A1. Do you see any integrations potentially coming like that in the future to optimize that whole airport experience?
We're like every day figuring out how to optimize the airport experience, right? And that's what you talked about exactly right. Like we want to know when you're landing, right? We want to know from a driver perspective how many people are landing at what time, and therefore how much demand overall there might be at the airport. And then we want to make sure when you pick up that app that we can make it as seamless as possible. That moment when you're trying to decide, do I hit it now? I don't want to have to run, but I also don't want to hit it too late or I have to stand there and wait. Like we want to get that, as much as we can out of the mix and create almost an instant pickup experience at the airport. And like you said, every airport's different in terms of where you go, how far away it is. We're also working with airports to try to make that, how do we be the best partner for airports so that we can get people in and out and create, a real smooth airport experience for everyone that's coming to the airport.
Today, it's certain airports around the United States. I'll notice Uber and Lyft drivers, they'll stage in a cell phone parking lot area and they'll wait for the ding ding and they go in. Sometimes it's 7 minutes, sometimes it's 15, depending on airport traffic. That's out of your control, but with an airport. When we get to autonomy and autonomous vehicles, how do you see that changing? Will infrastructure have to change? Will it be a lot where these AVs will then wait for the passengers, or how do you see that evolving?
A lot of airports will have, they'll have like a ride share staging lot where drivers wait when they're in the queue, and then you can, get out of the queue either when you're pinged, or some will let some spots closer, and then when you have a lot of drivers, they're further away. I think there won't be any different for autonomous, and for us, if those autonomous vehicles are on our platform, once they're regulatorily approved to pick up at the airport, they can just be in that queue the same as any other driver and, do what we think autonomous will do on the platform overall. We think it's going to grow the pie. I think so many people think, it's a fixed pie. We're only 2% of all personal vehicle miles traveled, rideshare overall in the United States, right? There's so much more. The pie can get so much bigger. So as those autonomous vehicles come on our platform, we'll just have more drivers, and hopefully it will lead to better customer experience on the rider side, faster ETAs, lower prices, et cetera. And then more and more people will use it. So those AVs should be, coming in and out of the airport just like any other human-driven car today.
If you think about it from a passenger standpoint, I'm in my personally owned AV, or I'll call it my Lyft-ready AV that I purchased or I leased. I get dropped off at the gate. My AV, I put it on the Lyft network, and it goes out and makes money for my 6, 7, 8, 10 day journey. And then when I'm coming back, it picks me up. That's my vision. Could that become a reality, leveraging the Lyft network?
Yes. Why not? I mean, I think that is the vision, right? So today's driver will be, the owner of an AV in the future. And right now, what's so great about driving on the Lyft platform today is, so many people come to the platform because they want the flexibility, right? They want to be able to take their kids to the soccer matches, to show up to their concerts, to be the great parent they want to be. They want to be an entrepreneur who drives when they want. There's not a lot of, places you can earn where you can literally drive whenever you want. You can drive for 2 weeks and stop. You can drive, the same 2 weeks every year. The flexibility is huge. Imagine when that flexibility goes beyond what it even is today, where you can be at dinner and put your car out on the network and make enough money for your dinner to be free, right? Or what you said, you can go to the airport and come back, and there'll be lots of ways where this is real. And I think people think that sounds so far off, or like, how's that really going to happen? I just think it's not that far away, right? As the technology gets better and better, and as this gets democratized and people are able to have AVs in their parking lot or, in their driveway at home, why not? Why not put it out on the platform while you're sleeping, or while you're out of town, or while you're at dinner?
If you look at it from an economic standpoint, there's massive inflation in airline tickets. And then the other scary thing is car delinquencies are 90 plus days late now, higher now than they were during the pandemic in 2008. You create a lot of positive economic impacts, benefits for the economy. Well, I don't know why it's not talked about enough. That's my opinion, because all suddenly you put your vehicle out on the Lyft network when you're sleeping or when your kid's at school, you can generate enough money to pay for your lease payment, to pay for your insurance, and perhaps put groceries on the table. That's a huge positive economic benefit that I don't think is talked about enough.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've seen, like, my whole time, the reason I came to Lyft was this idea around economic empowerment and economic mobility. That you can come on the platform today and earn on your own terms. You can do that while you're getting, bettering yourself for education. You can do it while you're doing other jobs. You might be the person that has 20 hours of work at the grocery store and you need more to make ends meet. And this, I think, will just add to that, right? And we've been doing a bunch of stuff around economic mobility of folks coming on the platform to make sure if somebody is coming to drive, but they're looking for their next job, or looking, how do we provide that opportunity? I just think this adds to that, right? To be able to, and some folks will just have their one car that they own, but others on the platform, I mean, these are small business owners. You might decide that it works for you and you're going to have 2 or 3 autonomous vehicles and put them on the platform and create a little bit of a fleet. And I think that's something that a lot of drivers will do in the future as well.
Do you view fleets, when we get to autonomy, as a growth segment for Lyft?
Fleets in general? Yeah, for sure. Autonomous fleets, for sure. Absolutely. And I think early on, it will be mostly big fleet. It's, these cars are still expensive, and it's mostly going to come from folks that have, big folks who are either building, the Waymos of the world, or other folks that are going to buy massive amounts of AVs and put them on, and they'll manage those fleets, or they'll put those fleets, or they'll have other people manage those fleets, which we're well equipped to do. And then I think as we go, it'll get smaller as well. There'll be the big fleets still, but you'll also have smaller fleet owners like we have today with, black car fleet owners, all the way down to an individual being their own fleet owner.
My co-host Walter Pisek on Autonomy Markets talks about these autonomous vehicle REITs being built, very similar to real estate empires, where you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 vehicles being put on the network. Do you see that potentially becoming a reality?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, it's anybody that has sort of that entrepreneurial spirit and says, look, if we put this, asset on the Lyft platform, and we're going to utilize it. That's our job, right? That's what we do every day. And it's making money. People will see that as an opportunity to go out and create their own fleets and put them on our platform. And I think as long as they're complying with the safety standards that we'll have, right? And obviously those are going to come a lot from the federal, state government. And, just like all other fleets that are on our platform today, if it's providing a good customer experience for the rider, it will just it'll just make the pie bigger.
One of the things that Mr. Risher talked about, and I called his autonomous vehicle manifesto, was Lyft ready vehicles. How do you quote unquote certify that those vehicles are quote unquote Lyft ready vehicles?
When we talk about that, I mean, that really gets to your whole point about individual ownership of autonomous. So when we think about Lyft ready, we mean like as many OEMs as possible. When, today it's L3, L2, L3. In the future, you're going to be able to buy the L4 car from the OEM. And when you buy it, we want it to be Lyft ready, meaning you should buy that vehicle, and as a owner of that autonomous vehicle, you should be able to press a button and put it on a Lyft platform, already set up for you, right? And then, like you said earlier, whether it's going out of town or doing something else, you can just earn immediately as part of that. So that's really the goal. Is like, obviously there's going to have to be all the stuff we talked about in that memo. You've got the companies that are building the AV technology. Some of those are also, really tied with the OEM. Some aren't. Then it goes on to the vehicle manufacturer. And then that's where we really want to get the Lyft ready with the vehicle manufacturers to say, when this car is sold, we want it to be ready to be able to be commercialized on the Lyft platform. And that could be a huge sell, right? That you can buy a car for X, but you'll be able to make X a month by putting it on the Lyft platform. And that's the kind of economics we'll figure out with folks. But you can see a world in which you pay off your lease, you pay your monthly payments, all of that through the money that you earn by putting your car on the platform.
So we're 2025. Let's say we fast forward to 2030 for a minute. Is the overarching goal a hybrid network? And when I say a hybrid network, you have personally owned autonomous vehicles, you have the fleet vehicles, that's the Waymos, the May Mobilities of the world, and then you have your traditional human-driven drivers. Is that how Lyft's viewing that?
That's totally how we're viewing it. And I think it's going to ebb and flow, and we're not making predictions about exactly what percent will be. We want to be nimble and be able to adapt as, if the price of AVs goes down faster, if there's, more OEMs putting it on, like I think it will switch a little bit. But yeah, we see it as like, when you think about the network, right, you have these peaks and valleys throughout the week, right? Where if you were trying to put just AVs on the platform, you would have to have so many for the biggest peak that would make no sense for, most average middle of the day. So I think what you'll see, at least in the short term, and I don't mean like year, but like in the next several years, is a hybrid network where you have big fleets that are autonomous, some smaller fleets that are autonomous. You've got the individual human-driven cars, and then eventually you'll have the AV, driver-owned cars. And that, yeah, we think it'll be a hybrid network. And I think, like I said before, as that will hopefully mean there's more supply on the platform, which means better, customer experience on the rider side, which means a bigger overall market share.
Your market share will definitely grow. The curiosity in me comes out. Okay, well, how do you stage these vehicles? Where do you tell them to go to sleep and to live and to come up? Hi, we got a concert here. We got a football game here. How do you determine where to stage these vehicles for the optimal rider experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the whole, that, you think about the AV value chain, right? That fleet management piece is critical. And I know you've talked about this a little bit. This, I think, is actually our real advantage. We're the only rideshare network that has our own, we have a subsidiary called FlexDrive. It's a company that we bought years ago, and it is fleet management, right? So today we have 15,000 cars that we manage, right? And it's all of the pieces, right? It's buying the cars, it's securing the relationships with the OEMs to make sure you can scale those purchases. It's onboarding them onto the platform. It's making sure that all the insurance is covered. It's making sure that the car is, basically everything behind the gate, right? Once it goes in, everything happens there, right? The cleaning, the maintenance, all of the details to make sure that car is utilized at its full capacity. And our folks do this very, very well. We're in about 26 locations across the country. Our FlexDrive team is dynamic. They are unbelievable. Yeah, I'd love working at a tech company where you have this sort of boots on the ground folks that are gritty, that get dirty and that know how to get it done, and they're just focused every day on operational excellence. So we imagine that fleet, over time we're gonna use that expertise to help folks. Yeah, and especially as you get more and more autonomous vehicles on the platform, you're gonna want to have lots more sites, right, in each location. You don't necessarily just want one. You got to be able to charge them. You got to be able to keep the data, all the different things that you're going to have to do that will be a bit different in an AV future. So we feel like we've got a really strong position to start with there. And obviously, we want to build on that with AV partners in the future.
The most important thing that you failed to mention, you have to clean them. They need somewhere to go clean.
You have to clean them. Yes, you have to clean them. You got to make sure the seat belts work. You got to make sure the tires are rotated. I mean, you got to do all of the things inside, outside, and it needs to be a great experience, right? And I think that that's one thing that hopefully that this will do is it'll make the experience better for the rider.
When you look at the autonomous trucking industry, when you launch a truck, you have a pre-launch inspection and a post-launch inspection. Will your FlexDrive subsidiary, will they do, let's call it pre-outing, post-outing, and safety inspections? I'm talking tire treads, seat belts. Will they do those safety inspections every day?
Oh yeah, do it every day today with FlexDrive on human-driven vehicles, and we'll do it in the future on AVs. And I think it's something you have to do every day, making sure every vehicle that goes out of that lot is safe, that it's been inspected. When it comes back in, you're checking everything and making sure that you then get it ready for going out on the next deployment.
Those vehicles are going to operate out of depots. Will we see McDonald's has Golden Arch Realty, for example? They own their real estate. Will we see Lyft come up with Lyft Pink Real Estate, for example, and own these depots in the future?
I mean, potentially, right? I mean, we own through our subsidiary FlexDrive the sites now in those locations, and so we know how to do the real estate, right? We know how to secure it. We know how to make sure we've got all the right assets on site. There's no reason we won't do more of that in the future.
When you looked at the building out these depots, is one of the trickiest things to do is to source the energy to charge the vehicles. Is that one of the most complex aspects of this, just based on regulatory time and a little dirty word called utilities?
I do think, I think that charging is critical, right? I mean, the AV future is an EV future for the most part, right? And when we first started, the transition to EV, has been pretty fast, right? And so we've had to slowly build up our capabilities at each of these FlexDrive locations to be, less about how do you get gas in there, but how do you get them charged? And in the future, that will be, pretty much 100%, I think. So that will be a huge challenge for anybody that's building these out. And, we'll work with partners that are managing the fleets as well. We're managing and putting on a network, and we'll try to do everything we can to help, learn together, right? How do we get charging? What do you need to make it work? And how do you learn from each other? So that'll be something that will be a challenge for sure.
You have your big first AV deployment coming up this year in Atlanta with May Mobility. Edwin's built an incredible tech stack. He's a great guy. Hi, Edwin. Is FlexDrive going to manage that fleet, or Curtis Hodge, who's I know is down there working his rear end off on it every day? Will he build a team inside of May Mobility, or who's going to manage the fleet operation?
Great question. They have built something pretty incredible. I think you said you're going to go up to Ann Arbor and ride in one in the snow. I got to ride in one of the first ones, the driver out in Ann Arbor, and it was smooth. It was impressive. And living in San Francisco, people don't do the head jerk anymore. But certainly in Ann Arbor, I was in one of the first ones. There's a bit of head jerk going on as you're driving by. Yeah, on that one, I think, as I understand it, they'll be managing the fleet to start with. But I am not totally sure if that will be like the long-term solution. We're very happy to manage the fleet and or share fleet, locations with folks that want to manage them. There's lots of options we can do with partners to make it work for them.
That's very interesting, because I know I keep going paralleling this to trucking. In the early days of autonomous trucking, nobody wanted to share a depot, and then economic reality set in. Oh yes, we will share a depot, no problem. So you publicly announced May in Atlanta. Let's say, I think one of the big markets eventually is going to be Nashville. So let's say you have two AV partners in Nashville. Hypothetically, you could see them sharing a Lyft Pink depot or a FlexDrive depot?
I think maybe not with the biggest ones, right? But I think if you have somebody, smaller fleet operators, there might be a lot of benefit in sharing a depot. And if not, just, learning even about, and what we're going to do is just get really, really good at this. I mean, we're already, really good at the fleet management we do today with human driven cars. And as we learn, we're gonna take everything we learned in Atlanta and we're gonna apply it, like you said, to Nashville or to any other city in the United States. And we're gonna continue to do that. And we'll work with partners on however it makes sense for them, right? And that's, I think, what's really unique about our partnership approach is, we come in saying, how do we make this a win-win? Right? We want to win. We want to grow the pie. We want them to be successful. We want to utilize their asset so that they make money. We want to make sure we make money. And most importantly, we want to make sure we're providing a great experience for the customer. We do that, more people are going to come back. It's going to grow the overall rideshare pie. That's good for us. That's good for our partners.
When you stay in Atlanta, is it going to be a multi-stage ODD rollout while you're starting a more confined ODD, and then gradually over time, as Waymo's done, you'll gradually expand that ODD?
That's the plan. Yeah, we'll start a smaller ODD and then expand.
When you look to expanding, could we see the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport at some point come on in the future? And will we get highway? Because going from downtown to Buckhead, if you're going that freeway, you're not doing 65, you're doing more like 5 miles an hour.
That's the plan, right? Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, airports are critical, right? And Phoenix Airport now, taking Waymo is like it's part of what we think will be really important to AVs on our platform, is to be able, the more they can go all throughout the city, the better, right? Because then you can just have a more diversified platform. You can have better options for riders. You don't want to have part of your supply that can only go in a certain area. Obviously, it's all beginning. We're learning, but we want to be able to go on the highway. We want to be able to go to the airport, and I think you'll see that sort of build out in phases.
Will the vehicles, will they be the Sienna minivans? Will those be the vehicles that will be deployed?
That's right.
They're great vehicles. Edwin said this many times publicly. They're dual redundancy. Toyota's been really helpful in giving them that platform to build their multi-decision policy-making tech on there, which works phenomenally, as you experienced. I haven't experienced the snow yet. That's next week, but I will. Yeah. Going back to the origins, how did the May Mobility deal come about? Because I've always called May Mobility the little engine that could, saying that one day they're going to come out and they're going to surprise everybody. And when I saw the public press release with you, I was like, aha, I know I'm right. Okay, he's coming up that hill. He's coming out. What were the origins of that deal?
I think we've seen everything in them that you have, right? I think they've got a very, very brilliant founder who's building some really impressive tech. You don't see don't hear about them as much here, but they're doing amazing things in Asia. They got a track record. They've done it. I think one of the things we've really been impressed with is the sort of intentionality that they're taking to it. I think they've been smart. They've done it very cheaply. If you look at the rest of the market, and so yeah, we like what we see. We really like them as a partner. They're a great partner. And we're excited to see, where they'll go in the future in the United States and around the world.
Are there plans to expand to other regions, other cities after Atlanta's going?
Yeah, I think we said that publicly. If not, I just did. Yeah, that's been the plan all along, is to roll out in Atlanta, learn together, create a great experience for riders, make sure it works, economically in the smartest ways, and then tweak that and go to other cities for sure.
I've said this publicly many times. You have a winner in May Mobility. I'm a big fan of Edwin and the team. I think it's going to be a great partner for you. And they have really great investors with NTT and Toyota on their cap table, not to mention tech, and a level-headed founder that's really focused on building a safe product, but also building it from an economic standpoint, which I think that's good. So you don't have to worry about the potential cash shortage just based on the balance sheet and the way that Ed is running the company. We can't talk about Robotaxis without mentioning the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room, Waymo. What are your thoughts on Waymo? And did we ever get to a point where I can pull out my Lyft app and I can go for a ride in a Waymo?
Yeah, I mean, your first question, what are your thoughts on Waymo? It's impressive. I mean, it's I'm so impressed with what they've built. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from St. Louis, and my folks live there. They came out to San Francisco recently. One of the first things they wanted to do was ride in a Waymo. They want to see the future. And I think you see that a lot of people who are coming out because it's impressive. And everyone that I've been in, I've been impressed with the technology. I mean, it is impressive. And yeah, I think we're hopeful that we'll continue to talk to them about opportunities to partner. We're watching. They just rolled out, with Uber in Austin. I think coming to Atlanta as well, and watching them every day on the streets of San Francisco. Obviously, they're leading the pack, and we're excited about any opportunity to partner with them or anybody else in the field.
The big difference between taking a Waymo on the Lyft network versus the Uber network, I can get 10x JP Morgan points, and that's a winning argument for me.
That is a winner. Yeah.
How important are those that JP Morgan credit card relationship that you have?
It's critical. That's a very important partnership as a cardholder myself. I mean, to be able to go on and get that 5x or 10x points, it's huge, right? I mean, we're hopeful that it builds loyalty, right? Stickiness. It's the kind of thing that hopefully develops that real strong relationship. The big thing we want to be is not just a company that's about a transaction, right? We want to be about relationships. We want people to come back. We want them to have great experience. We want them to know what they're going to get, to have an expectation of excellence every time they order a Lyft. And so, yeah, it's big for us, the JP Morgan partnership. We think all these partnerships are critical to us. If we can make sure that you as a customer are not only having a great experience, but also getting benefits on another partner that we have a lot of respect for, that's just a win-win.
You give me the pink. I get Lyft Pink as part of it, which is great. And so to our friends at JP Morgan, I know you gentlemen listen, please keep the partnership with Lyft. I made my pitch there. As a loyal Lyft rider and a loyal JPM card user, please keep the partnership going. If you look at loyalty, you're from St. Louis. You have one of the best baseball cities, best managed baseball clubs in the Cardinals. I got to put it out there because they do a phenomenal job, and the Cardinals fans are great. They have spring training up in Jupiter, and they travel, and it's just a really great baseball culture that's loyal. When you look at loyalty, do we ever get a point where in the Lyft UI, as you expand and May Mobility is going, perhaps Waymo, perhaps Wave is on your network and points where I can just have a tier similar to I have the different Lyft tiers where I can have an AV tier every time where if an AV is available, it'll prioritize that for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. I think the way we're thinking about it early on, right, is we want to really understand rider preference, right? We don't want anybody, if you feel uncomfortable, if you're not ready for it yet, if you need to see it a little bit more, we want to make sure you have that option. But I think as AVs become more ubiquitous on the platform, certainly we'll be trying to make sure that we can, they won't all be the same, just like no car on the platform today is the same, right? You got some that are higher quality, some that are more affordable, some that are bigger, et cetera. So I think in the future you could see that potentially happening depending on how ubiquitous they get, for sure.
I'd love to see it because then to me it goes back, you get a consistent product. And I'd be happy to pay a premium for that because I'm getting a consistent product. I know it was certified and cleaned by FlexDrive. I know that the driver's getting, if I'm not in the mood to talk, I don't have to go through the hi sir, hi ma'am, no sorry, I don't want to talk. That's what AVs is, give us consistency. Your CEO, David Risher, published, which I've called his autonomous vehicle manifesto, which was called Motoring Down the AV Superhighway. Mr. Risher put 6 key pillars in that strategy. How are you planning to implement that strategy?
Every day, methodically. So if you look at the strategy, there's 6 pillars. The first, right, is the first 2 really are partnerships, right? So we decided, as you mentioned earlier, we're not going to build the AV tech stack. So we're going to partner with the folks who do that. We're going to partner with the best in the business. We're going to show up in ways that hopefully will make them want to partner with us all over the world. Second is OEMs, right? Is building the actual vehicle manufacturing. We do not do that. That is not our special sauce. So again, we want to partner with the best folks out there, and we want to be the best partner that can maximize that vehicle in the marketplace. And then the third thing we talked about a little bit is ownership of the vehicles. Now, we don't want to own massive numbers of OEMs or of AVs, but we will. Some, particularly for R&D early on, we want to learn. And so if flipping some of that flex drive vehicles from human driven to AVs, we will do that. But we really see that as something that other people will do. We announced the partnership with Marubeni recently, and there'll be other folks like that who are going to really finance the vehicles. We think that's a huge part of the value chain. And then you get into where we're really going to excel, which is in the fleet management. And then the other 2 are really kind of like the marketplace, right? Demand generation, rider experience. This is where Lyft shines. This is where we want to be the best partner possible. We'll either, work with somebody that's doing the fleet management, and we're okay with that, like I said earlier, or we can do the fleet management with our FlexDrive folks. And then obviously we want to put those vehicles on the Lyft platform. We know how to run a marketplace. We've put so much effort into the matching, making it a great experience, making sure the rider has a great experience. And we want to, kind of excel at that with as many partners as possible to diversify the platform.
Because staying on the theme of the partnership, could we ever see a point where Lyft partners with an OEM to develop not Lyft-ready vehicles, but vehicles that were designed for the Lyft network, designed for rideshare? And I ask that because Foxconn is in the hunt for Nissan. It's been reported in the Financial Times, it's reported in the Nikkei, and various other outlets in the Japanese business world. They're hunting. and they are probably the world's best known contract manufacturer. Could we see that potential future possibly emerge?
Sure. I mean, I think the idea of, a lot of folks are starting to build these, like, purpose built vehicles, right, where it's designed for passenger, for rideshare, right, essentially. And you can imagine partner with folks that want to build them specifically with a rideshare kind of, case in mind. And maybe you could build different sizes, right? You could have ones that are a little bit more on the XL side for luggage and go to the airport, and then others that are built for, nightlife, that kind of thing.
Where does Tesla come into the picture? Because you have these Tesla bulls, or if you wanted Tesla stands, and say, oh, Lyft has no future. Tesla's going to own everything. Lyft has no future. I'll say this for the record. Lyft has a very bright future because fragmentation's coming to the market. I own a Tesla today. Fast forward to the future, I own my Tesla. Would I be able to put it on, not least I own, would I be able to put it on the Lyft network at some point in the future?
I mean, that's our hope. And yeah, anybody, it's your vehicle that you own. We would like to, once it's allowed, in the state where you are from a regulatory perspective, we want to be able to put it on our platform, and we want you to be able to earn money on that vehicle. So that's our hope. Yeah, I think, you see Teslas on the platform all over today that are, being driven with, they're right there to the next level of where they can get to being approved to do rideshare, and we hope that they'll be on our platform.
Are the 3 and the Ys some of the most popular vehicles on the platform today?
Yes.
Okay, so then there's a clear path to saying, okay, your riders like using these, your drivers like using them. Why don't we put them on there? It makes sense. So if you're going to allow an individual to put on their vehicle, autonomous vehicle, onto the platform, there's risk. And I know from all your public filings, your insurance payments are Wowzerville.
It's a good way to put it.
It's Wowzerville. I mean, it's pretty incredibly large. Will you create a separate captive where you'll run that through one of the large reinsurers, a Swiss Re, a Munich Re, a Zurich Re, since they have the appetite for that to lower your cost? Because I don't know what your public data is, but I will cite public data of your competitor. Mr. Karashaki even confirmed it at the FII investment conference 2 weeks ago. 42% of your ride in LA is insurance. That's astronomical. So how are you going to handle the risk, and then how are you going to potentially insure that risk when you put personally owned vehicles on the network?
I can't take the question without just talking about the larger issue of insurance, as Wowzerville, as you said. It's a huge problem, and it doesn't make anybody safer, right? And so today we have these regulatory requirements that are far exceeding what is needed, and all it does is make the rider pay more and the driver make less. And so we're doing everything in our power to drive those costs down, making sure the platform is more safe, making sure we're doing everything we can, but also working with regulators and others to really see that these are not the right policies, right? They're not helping the people that they're intended to help. And so we'll be doing everything we can to sort of drive that down. And I think you're right. It's a big problem. And, look, we have a commitment to drivers here, always going to take 70% or more of the ride after these third-party, fees. And the biggest one is insurance. And you mentioned LA. It's so different than other cities because of the laws, right? It's not because LA is less safe that drivers are less safe in LA. It's just because of the regulatory environment there. So we really want to push on that. So that's where AV comes in, where, I mean, you've mentioned this a lot, right? The whole autonomous economy has to be built on autonomous safety, right? And so we believe over time that the insurance costs will go down, right? As people see, just the stats, the data. But in the short term, we're going to have to figure out ways, like you said, just creative ways to make sure that we and our partners can drive down the insurance costs so that we can create the best experience for riders. They can pay an affordable rate, and we can make sure that whoever owns that vehicle is making what they should.
It just comes down to the regulatory environment. Megan, who leads your state and local regulatory, she's a rock star, and I know she's really trying to figure it out, and she's doing a really great job of trying to figure it out, because the nonsensical elected officials who think they know economics better than the private sector put these cockamamie rules and regulations that end up hurting your drivers. And some of your drivers, let's be very honest, depend on that wage income to survive. And the same thing's going to happen with the individual that puts the AV on there. And you put these cockamamie regulations that drive up the prices, it hurts everybody. But the good news is We will get a national AV framework. We've seen it from Deputy Secretary Bradbury has made public remarks. We're going to get a rock star and Jonathan Morrison as NIST administrator. And you have Secretary Duffy of Transportation. He wants it. So we're going to get movement at the federal level that will really, really help that there. Outside of that, from a federal level, do you see any regulatory hurdles on the local level or even on the federal level, since these will be personally owned vehicles that could potentially slow down these plans?
I think the biggest thing with car insurance, right, is that mostly it's handled at the state level, which is why you get these variants by market. And so, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the federal level as it relates to AV. Is insurance a part of that? Is it handled at the state level? Is it handled at the federal level? But it's definitely something that, yeah, we're going to continue to see at the state level, the need to educate folks on, when we started like when rideshare started, right, it was so new, so novel. People were so afraid, like what would happen if, you got in, a stranger's car, that some of the regulations made sense at the time, but they don't make sense today. And so I think hopefully AV will be able to roll out in such a way that the insurance, makes sense, keeps people safe, obviously, right, and accountable, at the same time allows the industry to thrive.
I remember in the early days of Lyft, this is post Zimride, but it's still the early days of Lyft, individuals around Santa Monica, Venice would drive around with a pink mustache, that furry thing on the outside. You get in the car. There's one car went to person had Christmas lights in it, and you had to do the fist bump and this whole, I call it the Lyft culture. It was cool. It's like, oh, this is an experience. And then a buddy of mine got not yelled at, but they said, "Sir, you sit in the front seat. We have conversations." And in those early days of Lyft, and that was the whole Lyft culture. And then I was in Boston, and I saw a mustache that was covered in all sorts of stuff from snow. I was like, that's not good. And then obviously the mustache went internally. But the point that I'm getting at there is Lyft has always had a culture. You've been funky, you've been cool. Let's call it, you've been the jam band of rideshare. You haven't been this corporate suit, or you're not selling out. Or I'll give you another term. You've been, the other guy's been Ticket. You know what I'm saying with Pearl Jam, and you've been Pearl Jam. How do you maintain that culture when we get to autonomy?
Man, what a great question, and what a great point. This is part of why I love coming to work every day. It's a fun place. I mean, people, I love that jam band analogy. Yeah, people come here, and they're interesting. And we don't do all those same things, right? We realized that the mustache got a bit dirty on the outside, but the point was, it was about community too, right? And we really wanted to make connections, right? We really wanted, and that's, David's really been focused on this. Like, our job is to serve and connect. We want to serve people, want to have a great experience, and we want to connect people. And the funny thing about autonomous is the initial thing is, oh, people won't connect anymore. I don't think that's totally true. I actually think, so first of all, when there's these purpose-built vehicles, the riders are going to be connecting in ways they never did before, right? Imagine sitting across from each other. You might be playing card games, all sorts of different things are going to happen. And two, it's not just the connection between the rider and the driver, it's also the connection to the world. We want people to go out. We want people to experience things. We want them to get out there, to go to the concert, to go to the show, to go to the restaurant, to be out in their communities. And I think that will still happen. I don't see an autonomous future changing. And the reason it's not going to change our culture is we're not going to just put our head in the sand and say, oh, X years from now, there'll be no more drivers. We do believe it's going to be a hybrid future. We do believe the drivers on the platform are key to our success. Those drivers are going to be tomorrow's entrepreneurs that own the cars. There's still going to be drivers on the platform. We're still going to be funky. We're still going to be fun, and we're going to be innovative. That's always been a huge part of our culture, is to innovate. And like you mentioned earlier, the other part of our culture is to be a great partner. We want to be somebody that other folks look to and say, they're operationally excellent. They run a great company, and we really like working with them. It makes us better, and it's going to make us more successful.
And that culture will carry over. Another thing I remember from years ago, I had a great conversation with Lyft driver about Bootsy Collins and funk. And the thing I always liked about taking Lyft was I wasn't getting pitched on a movie script. And when you have autonomy, I could be sitting there with somebody having a great conversation about Parliament Funkadelic or Funkadelic. And I spent an evening with George Clinton one night. That's an off-the-record conversation, but boy, oh boy, the stories are true. Mr. Carlton, we had fun. Jeremy, in your opinion, what is the future of Lyft as it relates to autonomy?
The future is bright. We're going to embrace it fully. We're going to embrace it with a human-centric approach. And that seems counterintuitive almost, but just like everything we've ever done, we know this is a conversation to have with drivers around their future. We're not going to shy away from that. We believe that we will be a strong partner for these amazing autonomous companies, whether you're building the AV technology, building the car, or even managing it on your, you're just the fleet manager, not just, but you're a fleet manager. We want that partnership to be strong. And so I think it's going to be a critical part of our growth. I'm excited about it. And I also think it's something that we're up for. We're up for the challenge. We're embracing it. I think we're going to come at it from a bunch of different ways. We're also going to do what we've done with everything at Lyft is we're going to learn. We're not going to be afraid. Strategy is a verb, not a noun. We're not going to be afraid to pivot when we need to get out on the front of it, and to try new things and be risky while also being smart to our overall bottom line and to the customers ultimately.
Let's sum it up this way: Lyft is building the future, Lyft is creating jobs, and Lyft is not going to lose their cool funk. The future is bright, the future is autonomous, the future is Lyft. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the road to autonomy today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Grayson.